I never expected a simple business meeting to turn my life upside down. I was just another employee, trying to do my job. When our CEO walked into the room with that familiar confident stride, she was always in control, always composed, and yet, that day, something in her eyes made my heart skip. As the meeting wrapped up, everyone else filed out, leaving just the two of us. I thought it would be ordinary, just the usual reminders, the usual professional conversation. But then she leaned in closer than necessary and whispered something I wasn't prepared to hear. I've tried to forget that night, and I failed. Her words hit me like a lightning strike. That night had been years ago, a memory I had buried, thinking it meant nothing more than a fleeting moment. But hearing her voice now, seeing her vulnerability in a way I never had before, made me question everything I thought I knew about her, about us. She wasn't just the powerful CEO I respected from afar. She was someone who had carried the weight of a past mistakes, something we both shared, though it had been long ignored. As I tried to respond, my mind raced. How much did she remember? Did she feel the same as I did? And most importantly, what would happen next? I knew one thing for sure. This conversation was only the beginning, and the story of that night, the truth we'd both tried to leave behind, was about to resurface in ways I could never have imagined. I stepped back, trying to collect my thoughts. But the memory of that night came rushing back, sharper than I expected. It was years ago, a night that neither of us had fully understood at the time. Back then, we were young, reckless in our own ways, and somehow, in the chaos of life, our paths had crossed in a moment that neither of us could explain. I had thought it was just a fleeting encounter, a mistake maybe, but hearing her whisper it now made me realize it had meant more to her than I had ever imagined. She glanced away for a moment, her hand brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, and I noticed a softness in her usually unshakable demeanor. The office felt smaller somehow, almost like we were the only two people in the world. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the careful way she measured her words. It was unlike the CEO I knew from the boardroom, stern, confident, untouchable. And yet, here she was, carrying a secret she had buried, one that connected us in ways I hadn't considered. Questions swirled in my mind. Why now? Why bring this up after all these years? Was it guilt, regret, or something else entirely? I wanted to speak, to ask the questions racing through my head, but the weight of her gaze kept me silent. Whatever this was, it was far from over. That whisper had reopened a door, one neither of us was sure we were ready to walk through, and I could feel the story of that night pulling us back in. Whether we liked it or not, after that whisper, the air between us felt heavier, charged with questions neither of us dared to speak aloud. I tried to focus on work, on the spreadsheets and reports that usually consumed my day, but my mind kept drifting back to her, to that night, and to the unspoken tension that now hung over us. Every time she looked my way, I felt at the pull of something unresolved, something that had been simmering under the surface for years. It wasn't just about the past anymore. Our professional lives were suddenly tangled with something personal, and it made every glance, every word, feel like it carried hidden meaning. I noticed how she lingered near my desk longer than necessary, how her emails sometimes hinted at concern beyond deadlines, and I realized I was noticing things I'd ignored before. The way her laugh softened when she was alone, the way she seemed to remember every little detail about me that no one else would. Meanwhile, the office buzzed with its usual rhythm, completely oblivious to the storm brewing between us. Colleagues joked about promotions and deadlines, unaware that the conversation in the corner of the boardroom carried a weight that could shift everything. I wondered if anyone else had ever seen this side of her, the CEO who commanded meetings and decisions with ease, but who now seemed vulnerable in ways she would never admit publicly. Then there was the memory of that night itself, always there, whispering its presence. I could sense that whatever she had failed to forget, I hadn't either, and it was only a matter of time before this old secret demanded more than whispers. Days passed, and the office felt different, as if the air itself held a secret we both refused to name. Every interaction with her became a careful dance, smiles that lingered too long, glances that carried more weight than words, and pauses in conversation that made my heart race. I couldn't tell if she was testing me, or if she was as conflicted as I was. Then came the evening of the company gala, an event where professionalism usually masked everything else. I spotted her across the crowded room, radiant and composed, yet I could see the tension in her posture, the subtle way her eyes searched for me. I knew she remembered that night, that one night that had changed both of us in ways we had never admitted, and I realized I couldn't ignore it anymore. As the night unfolded, our paths kept crossing by the bar, near the terrace, in quiet corners where no one else could see. Each time, the memories of the past pressed closer, and every word, every touch, felt like it carried a warning. Something had to give. I could feel the story of that night clawing its way back into the present, threatening to unravel the careful boundaries we'd built around ourselves. My chest tightened as she finally approached me, her expression unreadable, a mixture of longing and fear. The world seemed to shrink to just the two of us, and I knew the moment of truth was near. Whatever happened next would change everything, for both of us, forever. Just as I was about to speak, a sudden interruption shattered the fragile tension. One of the board members approached, whispering something urgent in her ear, and for a moment, I saw her composure crack. Her eyes flicked toward me, but there was something else there too, a flash of worry, almost panic. I couldn't tell if it was about the work issue or something else entirely, and that uncertainty made my pulse quicken. Then, without warning, her assistant handed her a sealed envelope. She hesitated, glancing at me, and something in the way she held it made my stomach twist. She opened it, and I caught a glimpse of a letter that wasn't meant for my eyes, but the reaction was unmistakable. Her hands trembled slightly, and the confident, untouchable CEO persona wavered. That night we shared, the one she said she had tried to forget. It seemed the past had more secrets than either of us realized. I felt a surge of panic, mixed with curiosity. Who could have brought this up now? Was someone threatening to expose that night? Or was it something even more personal? My mind raced, connecting dots I hadn't even considered, and I realized that this wasn't just about us anymore. Someone else had a stake in this story, and it could change everything. Her gaze met mine again, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Whatever was inside that envelope was a game changer, and I had no idea how we were going to navigate it. The night that had haunted both of us was no longer just memory, it was coming alive, and the consequences could be impossible to control. I couldn't hold back any longer. "Tell me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, glancing around the gala as if the world itself might be listening, then finally stepped closer. "That night, it wasn't just a mistake. It was the start of something I never understood until now," she admitted, her voice trembling. My heart pounded as the pieces I had ignored for years began to click together. She explained how that night had changed her to the choices she made, the path she took, and why she had tried to bury it all. It wasn't just memory or regret. It had shaped her decisions, her career, and even her life as a leader. Hearing her words, I realized I wasn't alone in carrying that weight. We had both been living in the shadow of a moment that had been bigger than either of us, and now we had a chance to confront it together. As the gala music faded behind us, there was a moment of quiet understanding. For the first time, we could face the past honestly, without pretense or fear. I reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. It felt like the first step toward something real, something we had both avoided for far too long. But just as I thought the night was settling into a fragile peace, her phone buzzed. She read the message, and her eyes widened. "Him," she whispered, almost in disbelief. My stomach sank. Whoever or whatever had been connected to that night was not done with us yet, and this new twist promised that our story was far from over. Her eyes stayed on the phone for a long moment, and then she looked up at me, a mixture of determination and relief in her gaze. "It's nothing we can't handle together," she said quietly. For the first time that night, I felt a sense of calm, as if all the tension, the old memories, and the unanswered questions were finally finding their place. We weren't just confronting the past anymore. We were taking control of the future. Over the next few days, we worked through everything, the lingering doubts, the old misunderstandings, and the unexpected challenges that had resurfaced from that night. Talking openly for the first time allowed us to see each other not just as colleagues or memories, but as people who had grown, learned, and survived. I realized that the bond we shared wasn't a fleeting mistake. It was a connection that had shaped us both, quietly influencing every choice we had made. By the end, there was clarity. The secrets that had haunted us,